let me go to the substantive issue as to whether the president will respond or not. I am convinced that the president will not glorify the Ghana Bar Association with any response. But you see, what are the issues? Not long ago, I think 5 days ago, the Ghana Bar Association issued a statement, and permit me to read. In the statement, they said, while the Ghana Bar recognizes the constitutional prescription for the removal of the Chief Justice under Article 1466 to 10 of the Constitution, and mindful of the fact that presently the entire matter is sub judice, it is the hope and belief of the GBA that actors involved in the whole process would have the time-tested tenets of the rule of law as their guiding principle, and in its application follow the spirit of the law. In less than 48 hours, they have gone under the guise of a resolution to more or less betray the very caution that they exercised in their earlier statement and caution sent to the people of this country. What happened? The only explanation behind such a U-turn is clearly partisan.
It's not law?
It is not law, and I'll demonstrate to you on this table why it is not law.
You are sure it's not law?
It is not law. The only reasoning behind such a quick U-turn by the Ghana Bar Association is politics. And I'll demonstrate to you. You see, His Excellency the President has acted in line with the constitutional dictates of Article 146. Whatever decision he has taken, ranging from the receiving of the petition, the forwarding of same to the Council of State and the suspended Chief Justice, and the eventual establishment of a prima facie case, are acts prescribed for under the 1992 Constitution, specifically Article 146. Today, if you look at Article 146.10, that empowers His Excellency the President to exercise a discretion on the advice of the Council of State to suspend the Chief Justice. That was followed. Undoubtedly, it is an exercise of a discretion. But if the GBA...
Is this discretionary power in its exercise bounded by 294?
To a very large extent, and I'll explain, maybe the GBA once again has misinterpreted the provisions of Article 294. 296C in particular. First of all, in a number of cases, plethora of them, the Supreme Court has stated, and the classical one is Ransford France versus Electoral Commission. Indeed, they were the very people who took that case to court, the MPP, I make reference to here. And it was decided in that case that when it comes to the exercise of discretionary power, there are two pillars. We have administrative or executive exercise of discretionary power, and exercising discretionary power in a quasi-judicial form. So it decided that when it comes to administrative exercise or executive exercise of discretionary power, it does not have to follow the principles as laid down in Article 296 Clause C of the 1992 Constitution. Because Dr. Datiba used the word that if we are to follow it, then it would lead to a meltdown in our country, our democratic processes. Meltdown, emphasis. But if you are dealing with a quasi-judicial body, 296 will be relevant in that regard. But here, we are dealing with an executive exercise of discretionary power. It is the formation of the committee, the eventual establishment of the committee. It is the committee that has the cloak of a quasi-judicial body. So when the committee intends to exercise a discretion, then they fall strictly under Article 296. What the president is engaged now has nothing to do with adjudication of the matter. It is simply a process laid down in our Constitution, and the president is following these processes.
The GBA argues that the president is not a judge and so should have published the rules before the suspension of the CJ.
But that is the point. That is why I'm telling you that the Article 296 simply says that if you are not a judge and blessed with a discretionary power to exercise, you should do so in line with Article 296. And I have told you that a number of cases has expanded the frontiers of Article 296.
Right.
And I made reference to Ransford France
versus
the Electoral Commission. Clearly, they have indicated that even if you are not a judge, there are two ways that the exercise comes in your administrative or executive decisions, or adjudicating, if you are adjudicating a matter. In this particular instance, when it falls under administrative and executive decisions, it says that you need not follow Article 296.
Right.
Let's not get that wrong. And you see, permit me to read excerpts from the that particular judgment I'm making reference to, so that we can put this thing in proper perspective.
That's a Ransford France versus EC.
Yes. So this is what the court had to say. It says, protecting the scope of Article 296C by purposive interpretation is not equivalent to removing due process from the exercise of discretionary power. Article 296A and B contain the standards for the application of such due process. These two clauses of Article 296, in conjunction with Article 23, assure the residents in Ghana fairness and impartiality in administrative processes. Limiting the scope of the obligation to publish regulations before the exercise of discretionary power does not, and this is instrumental, does not significantly impair due process in administrative matters in Ghana. Rather, it avoids the unraveling of the system of government as we have known it since 1969. The standard embodied in Article 296C may well offer desirable benchmark for good practice, and I commend it to those who exercise discretion to adhere to it whenever practicable. But non-compliance with it should not be treated as resulting in invalidity for the reasons already explained above. So I ask myself, is it that the GBA is not privy to these decided cases of our apex court? And that is why I'm telling you that what they did had nothing to do with the law. On top of that illegality that they are trying to invite the president to engage in, they also proceeded to allege or to demand that His Excellency President Mahama should make public the establishment of the prima facie case. You see, that is another problematic invitation to His Excellency President Mahama to engage in an illegality. And I'll demonstrate why. Under Clause 8, Article 146 of the 1992 Constitution, it prohibits publicizing the petitions and the processes as far as the petition is concerned. Today, if the president is being challenged or invited by the GBA to make public the prima facie case, that clearly would be an affront to Clause 8 of Article 146 that demands
that all hearings or proceedings shall be held in camera.
So sometimes when I listened to them yesterday and I read their resolution, I was like, what the heck is happening in this country? Is that what politics can do to institutions like the Ghana Bar Association? That they can change their stance in a matter of 48 hours and not just change their stance, but proceed on the basis of such a problematic change to invite His Excellency the President to engage in an illegality. So these are the kind of problems we have in the country.
Well,
and to finally, you see, we are at a stage where we know as a government that we are accountable to the good people of this country. And we do everything within our power to ensure strict compliance when it comes to the principles of accountability, and most importantly, fidelity to the principles of our Constitution. But we will not entertain any partisan-driven motive intended to stampede His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama or the National Democratic Congress to engage in acts that clearly subverts the 1992 Constitution.
Right.
And Mrs. Joe Gatti, that is the wife of Joe Gatti, who happens to be the president of the GBA, must tread cautiously. Because you see, you may have appeared on MPP platforms in the past with your husband. But when it comes to our democratic principles and fidelity to the 1992 Constitution, we must strive to go beyond partisan lenses.
Thank you.
And do things in the interest and spirit of the 1992 Constitution.